Hello, everybody. We're back. Episode 29. So close to episode 30, but episode 29 is going to be off the hook. Presented by sodastick.com. A lot of good stuff coming up for you. I thought I'd kind of mix it up. I'm going to surprise everybody. Guys, I'm a rapper. I'm like Eminem. I'm very similar.
Eminem, I'm so sorry, honey.
I spit mad. I know. You guys are ready for this?
No,
so I'm
not.
rap.
No.
I'm going to rap the rundown because this is what I do. And this is what we're going to try to do. It's the weekend before 4th of July. We're recording this right before the long weekend. I'm ready to go. I'm feeling good. If you don't want to hear it, then, whatever.
I expected this kind of behavior during quarantine, but we've been out of quarantine now for softly out of quarantine for like a month. And this is how you want to act now?
Trying to give our listeners and our audience something new, expressing myself and some of my other talents that go beyond hockey in case hockey never comes back to me. I have to find a new career. And I think rapping very well could be it. So, Fred, you want to drop that beat or no?
Me?
Okay.
I'm a dad. I would be embarrassing.
So here's the rundown for today, presented for you in a brand new way. I'm calling this the episode of the Bees because I like alliteration. And Dear Diary, you see Bruce Boudreau, yeah, he's our guest, and we want to see our logo splashed across your chest. So be sure to stay tuned for segment 2 when we hear from Bruce and what he's up to. In between, go to Teespring. Yeah, that's our store. Shop around and grab a tea. Hey, maybe 4. Wrap it all up with Dear Diary, then like, subscribe, rate, like a beauty. As always, we love our Beauts. This concludes my rap. Now you can unmute. Sup?
Wow. That was a lot. That was a lot to digest. I love the subtle, just buy 5 t-shirts plug in the middle of the rap. That was
I
my
said
favorite
4
part,
if you didn't know, because it rhymes with store. So
I thought you said buy 1 or maybe 4. Yeah, okay.
I love that your rapping style is like straight from like 1979.
Yeah, there's no
not even like recent rap. It's like let's go way back to the old.
I don't like cursing in my raps. I don't like. I mean, I'm telling you guys.
So you don't like rap?
Career. I don't. I do. I'm a big NWA fan, actually. That's kind of my jam. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they curse. They curse a lot. I don't know if you know this.
Little Ice Cube. Eminem curse a lot, too. No, but my personal raps that I will write, we'll try to keep it clean. So
if anyone's still listening, please, Bruce Boudreau is going to be on this podcast. Please do not tune out because of that rap. Just hang in there, please. You can tune out for Dear Diary if you want. Just hang in.
And actually, no, I think if you guys want me to write you a rap, let me know, please. I am open.
She's ghostwriting raps now.
I will send me a Venmo, whatever. Let's do this. Let's do it. It would be better if I had a beat, but I didn't have a beat. And I didn't know the beat except in my head. So, yes, in case you... Thanks for entertaining me, guys. In case you missed it, Bruce Boudreau is back with us this week. We're very, very excited to have him on. We were ironically going to have him on earlier, and then the world again kind of fell apart. So this is a rescheduled interview. Very excited to catch up with Bruce and see what he's been up to. He's living in Minnesota this summer, how he's enjoying that. And then as you heard, I mentioned go buy some t-shirts. In case you guys have forgotten, we have, in addition to our presenting sponsor, Soda Sticks line, we also have our own Teespring line, which offers t-shirts, stickers, mugs, tote bags. Alexis actually has done a really awesome job designing some really unique tees, including one design that you guys voted for, which has the Bardown Beauts with the hockey stick across the bottom. We'll be sharing that to remind you. Be sure to get those purchases in. We still have our One Team tee available too, with all proceeds going to the Black Vision. And a lot of really fun stuff. We shout out to everybody that's purchased them. We know a couple fans bought the Baby Beauts onesies. So that's exciting. We're excited to invite.
My friend sent me a picture 2-3 days ago. Manny, if you're listening, hi. He got the one where it was 5-hole, top shelf. He had the white tank top version, and he sent me a picture of him in the mirror, all excited with it. So he got a One Team t-shirt too, and he sent me a picture of that the other day as well. But yeah,
also Paul Allen. Paul Allen too.
Yeah, shout out to PA for repping the Beauts on the roof
party. He's rocking the Soda Stick OG t-shirt. Yeah, he was looking good.
It was funny. My friend had sent me a message because somebody had tagged us in it during the rube party, and I was like, I don't know what this is.
And that's someone I went to college with, and so he tagged me and then Bardown Beauties, and me too. I was like, why is he? Is he tagging me because I do K-fan stuff sometimes?
Because we're not there. Cool. Yeah, thanks for that.
I was like, okay. But yeah, and then you sent the picture the other day.
Yeah.
And then I actually went through and watched some of the K-Fan Root Party stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, PA's wearing our t-shirt. That's pretty cool.
Exactly. So that was very cool to see. So again, get some of your Beauts stuff. We have a lot of different options. Again, Soda Stick also has a unique line with some really pretty colors. Ours are a little, you can choose and have a little bit more fun with some different varieties on that Teespring. So be sure to check that out. And also don't forget to like, subscribe, rate this podcast because we want to keep growing, keep bringing you the love. So lots of good stuff. Speaking of lots of good stuff, we have hockey talk to talk. Again, I'm kind of digging the weeks where we actually have stuff to talk about.
I mean, that is why we started a podcast. Yeah, it is nice to have true hockey content. Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of nice. Let's start off with hub cities. NHL, it looks like they're staying in Canada, which, given the dumpster fire that some places in America are, I think it makes complete sense. Sorry, USA. Yeah. I know it's 4th of July. We just celebrated that. But no, it looks like Edmonton and Toronto are going to be your two hub cities for the West and the East. I think that makes sense. I think Vegas, with the latest outbreak that they're kind of dealing with as they've opened things up, it probably wasn't the safest. Canada's kind of seemed to be.
You could tell me that Vegas was like a scientific bubble of no coronavirus, and I would still say I don't want it to be in Vegas. Like I just was, no offense, Vegas, I'm sorry, but I did not want Vegas to be a hub city. There was something about it where I'm just like, I don't know. That just doesn't, again, I don't want to be the like, oh, it's Vegas, it can't be hockey. I just like, and that's not what it is, but there's just so many other cities that I felt like, I don't know, deserved it more or seemed like a better fit. And again, it's like, it seems like Canada is a smarter bet right now, just in general. So I'm like, let's keep it in Canada, that the temperatures aren't going to, get crazy hot, like somewhere like Vegas. And it seems a little safer than some of the places that they were thinking about for the United States. So yeah, I don't know, not surprising places for Canada or just generally speaking. So,
well, exactly. Like you said, the ice conditions are something too that nobody's really talked about. And I don't think anybody really considered. It's like, well, they keep ice year on. It's like, but they don't. Like you're not, Vegas Golden Knights aren't playing on that ice during July when it's 110 degrees or whatever it gets to be in Vegas.
Well, and I'm sure they were so focused on like the amount of hotels and like, can we accommodate for this, which obviously is like number one important thing. Like they'll figure out the ice thing regardless. But then when you kind of break it down into, well, what other things do we need to consider? Mm-hmm. That would seem to be like on like itemized list B of like important things that need to be covered. And that's what I just kept coming back to with somewhere like Vegas. I'm like, I don't know why that would be somewhere that's being so heavily considered still. Like, they check the boxes for hotels and accommodation and whatnot, but I don't know. It did make sense to me. So Edmonton, Toronto make a lot more sense. And I'm sad Minnesota won't be hosting. But I'm not surprised by the two cities they chose.
Yeah, no, not at all. I think, and it's funny, I believe it was Ryan Kessler. Ryan Kessler had tweeted, every NHL player is hoping that they get to go to Toronto and not Edmonton, because apparently Edmonton's not great. I mean, Fred, you've been to Edmonton with the Wild, no?
No, I got to Winnipeg.
Winnipeg, I've heard
that's awful.
We hear how people love that.
That's awful. My gosh, it's like you just picture like the most polluted, snowy place. I mean, it's not crazy polluted. It's just everything just feels so gray. It feels so dark and dirty. I'm like why
Duluth?
Would you come here?
Like Duluth.
Wow.
Duluth to me is a very gray.
Duluth.
Duluth. No, Duluth to me is a very gray, because you have the lake there, and there's just always kind of that lake effect. And I feel like it's always a very gray, like in the summer it can be really pretty, but even then it has kind of like at
least it has water though.
Different feeling. That's
Winnipeg, true. Edmonton, they're all just kind of in the plains areas and just windswept plains of Canada.
Is Winnipeg the arena as well that has the like beam right across where the announcers have to announce in the press box? Which arena is that? Is that Winnipeg?
No.
I know. I thought there was one because Kevin Gorg would always tell me stories about traveling. And I know he hated Winnipeg. He hates Winnipeg. And then there is one arena that has like the steel beam like right out in front of where the announcers like have to like watch the game. And every time they go there, they're like, "This is insane." And I thought it was Winnipeg, but maybe it's not.
It
maybe
might
it's
be
somewhere else.
But I will say, like, even though Winnipeg is such a kind of a boring city, but like that atmosphere makes it worth it. Like when you actually get in the doors and you're like, I can't find a single away jersey anywhere. It's just white. It's crazy atmosphere, but no, it's still plains of Canada.
Well, they're not going to Winnipeg. They're going to Edmonton and Toronto. So we'll
Wait, should we keep talking about Winnipeg? No.
No, so I mean, again, I think that'll be interesting. Again, it's another step forward. We'll see what happens. Most of you listened to our episode with Nicoletti last week. You know where we all kind of stand.
Yeah.
But they're gonna like shut it all down though. Like when teams get up there, they still have to quarantine for 2 weeks, don't they? Correct. From America, just pay from the government. So right. I mean, that's such a crazy long time.
I do love how Canadian is this that they want to shut it off to everything else except but no, the NHL can come here. Like we're having everything else playing it very safe.
Close the borders except for hockey.
For hockey, right? Which they had talked about that too. Same for if it were to be anywhere, right? Like, well, no, these are essential workers, so they have to come. And I'm like, they're hockey players, but wow. It's wonderful.
As much as I wish sports were essential, they're truly
not. Exactly. In other news too, Kaprizov, sorry to continue to down on everybody.
Here we go again with the Kaprizov dumpster fire.
He can sign this year. He can sign with the Minnesota Wild. He cannot play in this play-in. I'm done calling it the playoffs, I think. I'm going to call it the play-in too. He cannot join the Wild in the play-in games. Alexis, your thoughts?
It's just another element of the long saga of Kirill Kaprizov and when's he going to play? Is he going to play? Does he want to play? I've seen some people tweeting too. I think Russo tweeted something about this, but kind of like that people are starting to feel bad for him because it's like he wants to come play. And there's been this just with everything that's led up to this, even before coronavirus, where it was like, is he coming? Is he not coming? Okay, he's staying in the KHL another year. Then he can finally come. And then coronavirus happens. Then it's like, maybe he can come soon. Maybe he can't. And so I feel a little bad for him because it's this young kid who's about to start his NHL career. He, from all accounts, it sounds like he's ready to come play in America and ready to play in the NHL. And there's just been roadblock after roadblock. And so it's frustrating. And it's frustrating as a Wild fan when you're seeing a potential superstar about to join the team and it's just like stop and go traffic of if he's going to get to his destination or not. So it's frustrating. It's exciting that it's not like worse news because trust me, Wild fans, it could be worse than this. It really could. But it's frustrating that, there was rumors that he was maybe going to get to play in this playoff play-in games. Right. And so I think a lot of people got excited, like, oh, maybe we'll see him like sooner. And now it's like, well, no, now he's not going to be able to play until next season.
I think the biggest drawback is he wants to play. That's his problem. It's like, why would I burn a year off my 2-year deal and not even be able to play until winter? Like what is the point? And you also look at that from the Wild's perspective too. Like, what's the point of us signing him right now if he can't play either? And, I think, again, we've talked about it numerous times when we talk about Kaprizov is he has to have that transition. Like there is going to be a transition from hockey that he's been playing over in Russia and over in Europe to the North American way. I mean, not just the NHL transition. Again, it's a totally different style here. So for him to have been able to jump in and play now, that would have been great. And he would have felt better. So then come 2021, whenever that is.
I was just going to say, we don't even know when next season is going to start. So like, even if he does sign now and they're like, okay, don't worry though, he'll be playing like as soon as the next season starts, that might not be until January 1st of 2021. Like you guys, we're not going to have like regular season hockey, like October 3rd of 2020. Like that's not going to be happening. So we don't know. And again, it'll totally depend on if these playoffs happen, and if they do happen, when do they finish up, and what are we looking like as a country with this pandemic at that point in time? And so we don't know when that's going to be. So yeah, to Jesse's point, it's like, why, what is there appealing about signing and having no idea when you're going to be playing? Like she said, you're burning your deal in the Wild. It could be a waste of money.
And I mean, even beyond now, not to scare fans either, because I do think Kaprizov will come here. But again, if he has to sit and wait, why not sign another year with the KHL, which for all intents and purposes sounds like
don't, Jesse, just don't even go there.
I gotta say it. It's a thing, guys. It's a thing that could happen. I'm sorry, I'm the realist here.
I think Fred wanted to say something too.
You're the realist? Let's rewind to previous episodes we had in the year. Who was the guy that said, I don't think he's gonna come?
Fred,
but you were a negative Nancy. That wasn't real. That was just being negative.
No, I wasn't negative Nancy. I was right. I was right. That's what I was.
This is what Fred wanted to talk about.
I was right.
That's the only reason he's here.
I knew this was going to go sideways. That's the only way it could have.
It still hasn't. I mean, it's still It's weird. It's a scenario. You didn't know COVID was going to come in and ruin everything.
Let's pull up the Kaprizov countdown Twitter. What does he got?
You said that before coronavirus. So yeah, you were just being negative, Nancy, and the world just happened to fall into a pandemic.
You're all just mad because I was right. You're all just mad.
You're not right yet. He still could sign.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm more concerned about when the season is going to start if he does sign. I'm not even necessarily concerned about him signing. I'm more so concerned, like, okay, if he does sign, is he even going to play in the next year? Like, that's kind of what I'm most worried about.
Also, do you want him not playing?
That's the thing. No.
You want him to at least be consistent and be on getting ice time and scoring those goals and keeping up with the skill. But if he has to sit and all he's doing is coming to Tria just to practice
with 3 other guys, because you can't have more than 6 people on the ice. It's
well, and again, from his perspective, why does he want to do that? And from Bill Guerin's perspective, why do we want to do that too?
Yeah.
Why don't we just wait and sign? So I mean, those are all things to be considered. Breathe, guys, Wild fans. Eventually it'll be okay.
I'm like bang my microphone against my head. I'm so over this whole thing.
I know.
I'm over it. And everyone asking, the 2 most frequently asked questions of the last year have been, so what's the playoffs going to look like in 2020? And then the second most frequently asked question is, what's going on with Kaprizov? And both of the answers to those questions make me angry every time I have to answer them.
TikTok shout out. Did you guys see my TikTok I made? That has it has 20,000 views.
Which one? I've seen some of them.
It's a hockey one that I made where it was like the questions were, when's hockey returning?
Oh yeah,
I
saw that.
I don't know. When's Kaprizov coming? I don't know. And it's a pretty good one. I sent it to my mom and she's like, okay, that one I'm proud of you of. I'm like, thank you. The rest
that's a humble brag.
Yeah.
I was literally like, speaking of that, I was literally like, this was maybe like 2 weeks ago. I was on with Mystery Boy at his apartment. We were on his rooftop drinking wine, and there was some of like his neighbors were up there too. And it was the first time I had met these particular neighbors. And he's like, yeah, like Alexis, it somehow got to the point where I like worked for the Wild. Immediately, like 2 seconds, they're like, oh, so what's going on with the playoffs? I'm like, okay, we were doing so well. And now I got to talk about this.
I know.
It's just every time.
I'll like soft open, like I write. Oh, like what do you write? And I'm like, I write about sports. Oh, like what? I'm like,
and you just hope they stop asking questions before it gets to that point. Yeah.
Like literally like the stunned look on people's face, like, wait, like the Minnesota Wild? Like, yeah. They're like, why didn't you say just that? I'm like, because I don't want to talk
even broader.
Right now.
My first response is, I work in hockey. I just start with that. I'm like, you know what? That covers a lot of bases. And then if you don't want to ask more questions, I don't have to go into it.
Exactly.
And then, it just slowly dwindles down to like you having to admit that like you might know information about the playoff situation. And then you have to talk about it. Yeah.
I know. The one thing, the hockey that I wish we could have talked about is free agency frenzy. Like, as much as I kind of always hate it, I just love that it's on Canada Day on July 1st, right? And it's kind of fun. I mean, let's not forget Zach Parise, Ryan Suter. That was, it's free agency time, and now it's not, and it feels a little weird. Like, it's just kind of a little, which it is. It's funny that there was still hockey news being announced on Canada Day. Again, very appropriate. But no free agency frenzy. And it's funny because I'll always be up north at our cabin on the island, and I'm always like still online and like not, because I'm like, I'm still kind of working, but I'm doing it like on a lake, which is a lot better than at the office. But it was kind of weird, bittersweet, I think.
Yeah, usually I'm on my family usually does a 4th of July vacation, and we always drive everywhere because my mom doesn't like flying, and so we always will listen to the radio like in the car with all the updates about the free agency and whatnot. And so it's kind of sad, not doing your normal like vacation, and then B, like not having that entertainment, because it's fun to kind of follow. What was it the John Tavares drama last summer that kept everyone like going, where it was like, who's he going to sign with? Or was that 2 years ago already? I don't even know. But every year
it was 2.
Okay, you're probably right.
But if you ask Long Island fans, it happened every year.
Never died, yeah.
Just they hate him till he dies. Like, whatever, guys, get over it.
But it's just every year there's usually like one really good storyline that everyone holds on to, and then all this other fun like side stuff happening. And it's an exciting part, because I think for every sport there's something that happens in the off season that keeps that sports fans alive for that particular sport. And free agent frenzy, I feel like during for hockey is just like one of the best parts of the summer, and it's just another sad thing we've missed out on here because of coronavirus.
Wah. Wah, wah. See, that's why I started with a rap, just to pep you guys up for all the negativity that we're
downhill from there
today. We are going to take a quick break before we are joined by Mr. Boudreau. Before we do, we want to give a shout out to our presenting sponsors, SodaStick.com. We talked about them last week, but we're going to talk about again their new partnership with McGolden Light. Nothing screams summer like a McGolden Light and a lake, and happily Soda Stick combined those two things with some pretty sick teas that kind of have the neon look. It's called Lake Life, very perfect for Minnesota. So be sure to go check those out. They've got them in tanks, they've got them in teas. I got myself one. I will be sure to debut that on our next episode, hopefully. Fingers crossed that it shows up. Also, don't forget they've got the Bardown Beauty merch, as Fred on our YouTube viewers can see, is debuting. I do love that color, especially now that I'm nice and tan and bronze goddess over here. It's so perfect. Yeah, I said it.
She's so humble.
What?
A bronze goddess, guys.
Bronze goddess. Wow. Wow. Man, you went from like humble brag to just right off the cliff.
TikTok, follow me. I'm gonna go one man band pretty soon.
Yeah, she's like, rapping. I rap. I have a TikTok. I'm sexy and beautiful.
Let's see how well you edit these episodes.
No, but definitely check out. They've still got some great Bardown Beauty merch, as Paul Allen also displayed. Fred and Paul Allen.
Yeah, you want to be like PA, level. Trust me.
Yeah. So be sure to check those out. Drop that Bardown Beauties code at checkout for free shipping on all merchandise purchases. We'll be right back. And we're back. Joining us now, our very favorite former Wild boss, proud owner of a new knee, and most important, a fantastic movie buff, Bruce Boudreau. Bruce, how are you?
It's been good. I'm in, obviously, like everybody else, you're bored about the way you have to stay indoors these days, but I'm feeling healthy and looking forward to what's coming up next.
I know. You'd said you were on a little trip, got to travel around the country. How was that? How was the drive and seeing some family?
We took the car and we went to Hershey, Pennsylvania. I have a lot of friends there from when I coached there, and I've still got a membership at the golf course there, so it was an easy play. And then on the way back, visited my son and grandson for a couple days, and then we drove back yesterday. And well, we would have stayed longer, but I knew I had this to do, and so we got back to this.
Well, we appreciate you sacrificing for us. How'd you swing on that? Did you get out on the golf course?
Yeah, you know what? For a guy that's just coming off a new knee, I was happy with my game, so it was all good.
And you had mentioned you saw family. How are the kids, and how's Crystal? Happy anniversary. I think when this debuts, it'll be your guys' anniversary, so happy anniversary there too.
You know what? I appreciate that. 25, we would normally, if this was a normal year, my poor wife, she had this whole thing planned that we were going to Hawaii. She had it planned a year ago, and we had to cancel that. But so I took her to Fort Wayne instead. So
it's like a fair trade.
Second. So other than that, it's been a crazy couple of months here. And as someone like you who, loves the sport of hockey and has been very involved in it, what has this been like for you to, all of us are dealing with no sports in a different way. What has the last couple of months been like for you?
Well, it's just as difficult for me as it is for everybody else. You wait on the weekends. You're usually expected to watch something. I mean, even baseball at night, there's none of that. There's no hockey. I mean, right now we'd be going, hey, who's left unsigned? Who can we get? But, I make myself busy by, quite frankly, by staying busy in trying to contact a lot of hockey people, and trying to watch I still watch a lot of hockey on YouTube, from YouTube and everything else. And so you try to stay intact with the news of what's going on and being up to date. So that's where I am right now.
What kind of games are you watching on YouTube? What's been kind of your favorite? Are they classics, or are you going even just a couple years back?
No, you know what I did is I went back, and because they got all the games, and I went and watched when I coached in Washington, playoff series in Washington, playoff series in Anaheim and Minnesota. The biggest thing I wanted to find out was, has my coaching style changed? Am I the same guy? Have I went with the times, or am I being archaic in doing the things that I've done? And I've found that I've progressed a little bit from everywhere, going from a real physical aspect of the game to more pressure and speed. And so I just wanted to know, like, if they're on the next job, I don't want to be just because I'm a little older than most coaches. I don't want to be thought of as an old coach, if that makes any sense. I want to be up with the times, and so I wanted to see those things and the mistakes I made as a coach on why we lost, if there was mistakes to be made. And so it was sort of a learning experience, but I really enjoyed going back and watching all the games.
Heck yeah. And you had said the next job. So is that so? I mean, coaching, you're not ready to hang it up, right? You want to get back behind an NHL bench ideally and lead another team, hopefully to that Stanley Cup, because you want that ring as bad as the players do, right?
Yeah, no. I you know, and it ended so abruptly and so weird, I think, this year, that I'm really hungry to get back and do it again. And hopefully I can. I don't, I got into coaching later than most people at 39, because I played till I was 38, and so I feel like I'm still, just in the middle of my prime as far as coaching goes. But time will tell with that. We'll see. I mean, I know in the playoffs up here, I was hoping to do a little bit of either analyst work on TV or whatever, but I don't know, because I did that trade deadline stuff in Toronto at Sportsnet, and I liked it and they liked me. So, but now I think, if you have to go to Toronto to do that, you got to get quarantined. You got to do, there's so many things that you got to do to get over this hump. So, so anyway, it's trying to stay busy hockey wise and finding out that if you want to, you can find enough stuff going on.
So we've talked on our podcast a few times about how strange it is for some of these players who were maybe on the verge of being traded or talked about being traded, and kind of this limbo of, between the season here, no hockey and obviously no trades going on. What is it like as a coach who's in that same limbo of and there was 8 or 9 coaches who 8 or 9 teams who lost coaches here this season. So there's a lot of coaches who are in limbo right now of trying to figure out, hey, what team am I going to be with? Am I going to be with the team? So what is it like for you on the coaching side of it?
It's strange as well, because this would be obviously the playoffs if everything was normal.
Right.
And coaches get hired usually between April and June, and but everything's been sort of put on hold. I mean, I know I've talked to a few teams, and they said we got to wait and see what's going on. I mean, they didn't know whether there were even going to be playoffs or there was going to be playoffs, and I totally understand it. And you got to give the people that they've got in there opportunities to succeed, and so it's just a longer wait. It seems. Now, what would happen if tomorrow they said, you know what, this virus is crazy, we can't even do it, let's just hopefully we can start the season fresh and start like we normally would, then I think you would see a whole bunch of hockey news the rest of the summer, from free agency to the draft to everything else, and they would lump it all in a hurry. But I'm really hoping they get these playoffs off the ground. I think it'll be really exciting. I think the fans are starving for live sports entertainment, and I think it would be such a new thing, hockey in August and July and September. And when you think about it, in a normal year, July is such a slow month because there's only baseball going on and golf on weekends. But if you started throwing hockey in there, and then basketball starts and baseball starts, now it's pretty exciting. And to do it in front of no people and all of that, adds a whole new dimension into it that I'm really excited to hopefully see.
So obviously you're in the column A, where let's start, let's go, let's finish the season out, and at all costs. Is that kind of the way you lean? I know how hockey hungry you are, so that doesn't surprise me. But
I would want to do that, or let's get off the pot and call it a day and go somewhere else, and wait till September and get all the summer hockey news. I'm an impatient guy. So I mean, the sort of everyday looking, okay, what's happening today starts to wear on you a bit.
So I mean, how does it feel for the players then too? If you were a player, I mean, what is this situation like for you when all of a sudden your season stops? And it's just such a bizarre situation that nobody's ever seen. And now do we play? And now you've got 24 teams in this play-in and everything is totally different. And then when you do return, there are no fans. Like, how weird would that be? And how do they navigate that?
I don't know. I've never had to navigate that. I mean, I know normally in July they start playing. In Minnesota, we have the Beauty League here and that. But it's sort of like an informal, okay, if I don't really give it my all today, that's fine. But now, I mean, I find that I'm just guessing because I have no idea. I've never been through this situation. But the older guys have got to get their training legs right back in a lot earlier than they've done for most of their life. So it's probably a really different scenario. I don't know if it's better or worse for some of these guys, but I guess hopefully we'll find out.
Well, what I was just going to ask for you, we talked about how it might be harder for some of these guys to get back into it. Do you think it benefits you as someone who's looking for a job to have the playoffs happen? Or do you think it benefits you more to have them just cancel the rest of the season and, like you said, kind of get into this craziness of signing people and making trades? And what do you think benefits you more?
Well, from a personal point, I think it's better if they play. Only because, and I don't like to see anybody get fired. Believe me especially.
Especially you, right?
Yeah, but if most of the GMs and the ownership are really fair, and all of a sudden you go this long and the season's canceled, you're going to give them a start at the season. But it would make the start of the season so important because you can see that people losing their jobs if you start off 2-8 or something like that pretty quickly, rather than giving them some time. But I think there'll be a lot of decisions made positively or negatively if they play, because the results will be if one team loses in 3 straight and they weren't expecting to lose, then maybe the ownership gets a little antsy and makes a change at that point. I don't know.
Given the way that the draft lottery kind of shook out, which is something
crazy,
very, very different. Yeah. If you're a team that's down 0-2 in these play-in with the potential to get that first round, do you kind of throw in the towel, or do you think how do you do that?
I refuse to believe any player, coach, manager just sits there and says, okay, let's lose. And I refuse. I don't think the competitive nature of any athlete would allow that to happen like on purpose. Mm-hmm. But I mean, after the game and they lost 3-0, they might go, okay, that's not a bad thing. But I don't think they'd ever tank it. I refuse to believe that.
That's kind of my take on it too. Like, actually, I had somebody, I was on another podcast and they had asked me that same thing. I'm like, these are competitive people. Like, you have to know these guys, they do not want to lose at any cost. I don't think anyone's going to just be like, whatever, no big deal. I mean, it's crazy.
You know what? You don't train as hard as pro athletes do to lose in a week. Mm-hmm. You'd be really, I think, upset. Like, even the fact that, say, Joel Eriksson Ek had to come back here and quarantine for 14 days and then train and get ready, and nobody wants to lose in a week. Once you get a chance to win the cup, or you're into that mode where you've got that opportunity, it is a dream of every pro hockey player. So you're going to give it your all.
Right.
What would you say, you've gotten the chance to coach several different teams, some very, very talented players, Alex Ovechkin included. What are some of the best and worst parts about coaching, do you think, especially at that NHL level?
Well, I think the best, I keep telling people, is it's when you're involved in coaching, like we're being a head coach. I don't know, I haven't been an assistant yet, but you go to work every day. You're with them more than you are your own family, and so they become your hockey family. That's a big thing. And so you get to know them. I think you should anyway, and I make a point of it, is get to know them personally, get to know how everything's going on at home and everything else, and that's a big miss for me when you that's taken away from you here. So that's a big part. Now, what was the other part of the question? I lost track.
One of the worst parts, the best and the worst parts about
That's
it.
the worst part, is losing that opportunity to stay with them, because it's like once you get let go, it's like you're done. You're separated. You may have the odd conversation with the odd player, but I mean, it's not like you're seeing them from 8 a.m. till 2 p.m. every day again, and getting to know them a little bit. So that's, to me, the worst thing is not being around that group, that family type thing. The best thing is getting to know them, getting to know, like, for example, I had a friend phone me yesterday and said, when you come to Washington, Nick Backstrom wants to play golf with you. And I haven't coached him in 10 years, but you hear things like that your former players really want to see you because they like you, and that makes you feel really good.
Do you feel like you were given enough time here in Minnesota? Like you said, it shocked you. It shocked all of us, I think, at the timing, and not to, rehash old wounds or anything like that. But do you think you were given enough time in Minnesota as far as just getting to know the players and getting your system implemented and taking them to that next level?
Oh, I knew the players for 4 years. I mean, that was plenty of time to do everything. I mean, and I thought everybody makes decisions for reasons, but I thought we were going in the right direction. And when you look at it, we started out the season 1-6, and now they're 15 games above 500, and we were 10 games or 11 games above 500 from that 7th game of the season when I got let go, which was one of the best marks in the league. So I mean, you would have loved to have been able to continue to do that, but you know what? I have no regrets. I love the people of Minnesota. I love a lot of the players are my favorite players, and I wish them well. And I found out if in the past, if you keep worrying about it or being mad about it, then nothing good comes from it except you lose a lot of sleep. and I had this thing with. I know I'm drifting a little bit, but I had this thing with John Anderson, and we both grew up. We loved hockey more than anything, and when he was let go, basically of the NHL, he said, "I quit. I'm not playing anymore." And he was bitter with the game, and that really bugged me because he was about 35 years old at the time, and so it was something he did his whole life, and now he was upset at the game. And so I got him to come back and play with me for a year in Fort Wayne. We had the best time of our lives, and he continued playing for 5 years from that, and then he became one of the most successful coaches going. So, I mean, so when you leave hockey, it's a good memory, not a bad memory. And I mean, the last thing, one of the reasons I want to continue doing it, I want to leave on a good memory. Like I don't want to leave all of a sudden as an afterthought getting, fired 21 games before the season's over.
Right. Given your tenure and your record and all that you have achieved with the teams that you've done, so you get to be a little bit picky. Would you be picky in choosing if you had a couple, or are you kind of like, I just want to get back, give me the job and I'm in?
I am pretty non-picky. I'll tell you. Well, when I got fired in Washington, I got hired that same day. And as soon as Anaheim called, I remember being on the plane and saying, I don't know any of these players. Who are they? And they were in last place at the time. And when I took the job in Minnesota, I mean, Chuck was the one that sold me on it. I didn't look at any of the players or anything. I knew they had good players. Excuse me, but it was Chuck that sold me, and it was the person that I thought he'd be great to work with, and he was.
You talked about, we've talked about your time here in Minnesota a little bit, and you just so happened to call Minnesota home. And what makes this state so special? Why do you enjoy being here? You talked about the Beauty League, your time with the Wild. Also, I don't know if you know this, but you frequent a restaurant that I work at, T. Morris Pub and Grill on Prestwick Golf Course. I'm a waitress there. I have served you a couple times.
Wow. Okay.
You said you're a great tipper. You do great now.
I'm playing there again tomorrow, and then I'm in the Classic Classic next week. And
well, I'll be working tomorrow, so if you come into the restaurant, I will be working.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you've come in with Russo. It was before I worked for the Wild. I had served you, but I obviously knew who you were because I've only been with the Wild for 2 years. Yeah, so you love the state and you enjoy being here. What makes Minnesota so special?
Well, you know what, and it's going to be a long answer, so
we're ready.
You know, the thing, to me, the people are really superior. I've never gone and met people that have treated me so well. And I get more calls from my friends in Canada and because they see all the stuff that's going on in Minneapolis. Yeah. And it really bothers me because it gives the great people of Minnesota a bad name. And people that don't know them don't know how nice our neighbors are. Fabulous. Like when I go to that course, I mean, Tom Wall and his staff, they treat me so well. I mean, it's hard to leave. I mean, it's you know, that's why we bought a junior team here, and we just thought that this might be our last stop on the coaching go round. Hopefully, it's not. But we just thought we loved it, and the only thing that is negative about Minnesota is what everybody knows was negative is from October to April. It's pretty chilly out there.
I'm glad you said that because that is my question, though. Knowing now the summers, how wonderful the summers are here, though, are the winters worth the Minnesota summer?
It's hard for me because I play and I don't really. It doesn't really make any difference as I go to work at 6:30, I come home at 3 o'clock, and every day is the same. It's Groundhog Day. But one of the things I didn't know about Minnesota, and I truly love, and I told my wife that the next place where if we ever live somewhere again, it's got to be on water. The lakes are beautiful. I'm not a fisherman or anything like that, but I just love looking at the water in the morning. I just think it's the most calming thing. And I had no idea how many there were. And one of the things that I really enjoy doing in the winter, I tell you, is when I come home, all these lakes are frozen. They've all got rinks on it. I don't know how many times I've just stopped randomly, saw kids out there and went out on the ice and in my shoes and started talking to them and having fun with them. I think that's great.
I know. It's kind of like Canada, right? Like where there is kind of that free play and that's where players get that creativity. I think that's what makes Minnesota so special as far as the hockey component is because kids do get to just go grab their skates and go skate outside for free and have that. I think it's so unique. And that's why there's so many successful players that are born and raised here too.
It's unique and it's special and you're 100% correct. That's where you do get your creativity, playing on ponds all day long with no rules and just stick handling and your skill set, you know, whereas you look at most, and there are superstars and players come from warmer climates, but for the most part, they're all in rinks. Every time you get on the ice, you're with a coach. You're getting structured play. You're not getting the ability just to have fun as a kid, and that's, I think it's the greatest. We got a picture in our house of just a lake with the kids playing on the lake, and I just think that's how you grow to be good hockey players.
Well, speaking of pictures in your house, for anyone who's watching the YouTube version of this, there is some memorabilia on each side of Bruce behind him. Do you have a favorite piece of memorabilia or just something that has a really good story that goes along with it? Because usually everyone has at least one piece that they absolutely love.
Fortunately, I got a lot of stuff. And it's most of it is in the basement. But this is the office where we're talking from. And just looking around, there's a couple articles I've got framed here that were really, really cool. And the one I'm just looking at here, and you can't see it, but it says, "Wait for the next Zamboni, Bruce." It was about me, like I was in the minors way more than I was in the NHL as a player. And the one year I was the last cut, and they kept this tough guy. And I led the American League in scoring. I was leading at the point by 20 points or something. And the guy they kept had played 40 games, had no goals, no points, no assists, and 200 minutes and penalties. And they were just going off on how stupid the Leafs were at the time. And somebody sent me that letter. So that was pretty cool. I mean, a lot of it in this room is they've got framed on the lineups on my first wins or my first coaching games. And I thought that every now and again I'll go back and I go, holy crap, we won with that lineup. It's pretty interesting stuff.
So do you have a favorite coaching story then? Is there, again, I mean, you've been able to coach several different teams, a lot of very talented players. Is there a moment in your coaching career that sticks out to you where you think about it a lot and you just keep going back to that moment in time?
You know what? The moments you have that stick out more than anything are team wins. And I mean, not individual moments at all. I mean, and it's funny when we won in the East Coast League. Now it's AA hockey and everything in Mississippi, where they knew nothing about hockey, but we won in Game 7 in triple overtime to win the championship. That was pretty special. And when we won in Hershey in the American League Championship, the part I remember is I was the first one to go over the boards and jump on the goalie. I mean, I got this fat little body running across the ice, and we scored in overtime, and I'm doing the big jump on the goalie. And those memories.
You have a picture of this? Like, I wish, like, a photographer that would be.
I don't have a picture. That's on YouTube, and you see me, the players barely being able to lift me up, which I thought was really rude. But those are the points. Winning when we won the conference champion or the second round against Calgary in the playoffs in Anaheim, that was really special. Winning the President's Trophy in Washington with those great teams that we had were special. Even my first year here, when we had 106 points and we were challenging for the President's Trophy right up till the middle of March, and we won 12 games in a row. I thought that was a special moment. And when we played Columbus that year, they had won 14 games in a row, and that had never happened in the history of the NHL. And it was on New Year's Eve, and it was a pretty special moment.
Oh yeah, I remember that too. I think actually I found out I was pregnant that night too, and so then I had to like go cover this game. So I was just like, what is happening in my life?
I was at a hockey game. So Bruce, I'm from South St. Paul. I'm a South St. Paul Packer, and I was at Doug Woog Arena. My sister was still in high school at the time, and we were watching her game there, and everyone was congregated in the lobby watching the Wild game on TV because it was this big matchup between the Wild and Columbus, and no one was watching the actual high school hockey game going on. Everyone was in the lobby watching the Wild game. I remember that because it was such an exciting, like you said, it had never happened before, and the build-up for it was so exciting, and that was a really, really fun day.
The result wasn't as good, but
we don't need to talk about that.
No, people probably forgot. It never happened. Yep, it was fine. The game tied. It was a tie. You guys are both still on. Did you, Bruce? Obviously, we talked about how special Minnesota hockey is, and usually you guys are on the road when the state high school tournament rolls around. But I'm sure you've heard of how special it is. Were you able to check that out at all this year?
You know, well, it happened the day I got fired, February 14th, I think.
Way to go, Jesse.
No, that was the girls' tournament. The boys' tournament's in March.
Well, no, the 15th, a scout from another team said, you want to come watch the high school? I don't know if it wasn't in the tournament, but it was a playoff game of some sort.
Playoffs, yeah.
In high school, and I said, no, I don't think I'm quite ready to get out on the town and watch high school hockey at this point. But a special story, though, that I thought was really cool was Darby Hendrickson's son played in it 3 years ago. Played in the championship game, and they won. But we were in Vancouver at the time, and I had the pleasure. Chuck had come up to me and said, "You think you can manage without an assistant tonight?" And I said, "Why?" And he said he wanted to see if Darby would want to go home and watch his son in the championship game, which I got all emotional, and I thought that was so cool. And when I brought it up to Darby, Darby's such a great person. He'd say, "Well, I don't want to leave the team." But you knew he wanted to go, and as we all would want to go see our son. And he went, and they won, and I think we won in Vancouver, and it was a good day all around.
I love that. One of my favorite things about you, Bruce, is that you are so open, and you're you're so like, it's so great. You don't see that, especially not just from coaches, but players and in hockey. I mean, why do you think that's important, just to kind of let folks in sometimes and share these stories and be kind of, emotional or even vulnerable, especially in the culture the way it is?
Yeah, I think we're all guarded about, in today's media, what we say, and what we do, and because if anything bad comes of it, the next thing you know, it's on every social media thing. So I understand why everybody's guarded. My problem is I get talking hockey, and I love it so much, it just comes out. I don't even think what I'm saying. I just, at the end of the day, I sit there and I go, did I say something stupid to my wife? I worry about that all the time. So, I mean, but for the most part, I just talk.
Yeah. Like the "we will win" last year when us media folks had to blow that out of proportion for you. And or "we will make the playoffs."
Everybody was, that's an interesting story. And because this is what I told Craig. I said, it was calculated when I told Paul Allen that, is that because everybody was talking about us being out of it already. And we were in second place, I think, at the time. And so I had to, in my mind, let the players know that I totally believed in them, because all they were thinking was negative. I mean, we just traded Granlund, we just traded Niederreiter, we just traded who else did we trade? Charlie. And I think at that moment, I mean, this year it's changed a little bit, but that moment everybody was thinking we didn't get the true value of that deal. And I had to say something to make everybody believe that I believe that we're still a great team.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you've got some coaches who show up to press conferences and interviews and they're very, they just get straight to the point. They say what they need to say. They get it done. They move on. You have other coaches who are, John Tortorella, one of my favorite coaches, yelling and screaming all the time. And then you've got coaches like you who are very, candid, very open. You're going to be honest. You're pleasant to the media. So it's nice to see that there are coaches who are like that, because it makes media's job a lot easier too.
You made me believe that the Wild would win. Even when I wrote it, I was like, well, maybe. And it was slow news. We needed something to talk about.
The funny thing was, like, the things that is I knew that in our last 20 games, we were playing 19 playoff teams. We had the hardest one in the NHL. Right. So all of those things added up to, you better make the players believe, whether we could or whether we couldn't, but they have to believe before you go into every game that you can win every game. You have to believe that.
Right. No, I think that's, otherwise you won't. You can't, if you don't think it right, you're really not.
Because the first negative thing that happens, you're going, see, told you, we're going to lose,
Would you prefer to have a team come in like Minnesota did this year, where like they were ranked 32 out of 31 teams at the beginning of the year, predicted to do well?
Off too. Like, I mean, we use that in the locker room. We're ranked 32nd out of 31 teams, and I think I went on XM that day, and because who said it was Jim Boomer Scott, a friend of mine, and I just said, we're gonna win, blah 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 blah. And he said, well, I'll call you in November and we'll see where you're at. And in November, we were on that 11-game unbeaten streak. So he sort of apologized at the moment.
That's hilarious. I mean, but would you rather have a team that is kind of maybe not projected to do so well, or would you rather have a team that comes in with a target on their back because they're so good, like a Washington or something like that? Is there a better side of the coin on that?
You know what? I don't know. Before I came to Minnesota, I'm not bragging, we were never the underdog.
Right.
We were in first place for 10 straight years. So we had home ice advantage. So we were always the ones with the targets on our back.
Yeah.
It's an awful lot easier when you don't have the target on your back, because then there's no pressure. And I think either way, when you win, it's just as good a feeling.
Sure.
And you prepare the same way. But coming in hot might give you a little bit more confidence. Like let's say Dallas had lost 6 in a row going in, and they did. That's what they'd lost 6 in a row if the playoffs had started right then. And now, would they be as confident as a team like Minnesota, who had won 8 out of 12.
Yeah.
Coming in. I don't think they would have, and they would have needed a game that first game to jump it up and gain their confidence back. And whereas Minnesota, I think, if they had lost their first playoff game, would have been resilient enough, saying we've fought back all year. This is just a little blip on the radar.
Sure. Yeah. Well, we've talked a lot of hockey, and we told you before the interview that we were going to ask you about this, but movies. And you're a huge movie buff, and anyone who knows Kevin Gorg knows he's also a huge movie buff. And Kevin Gorg, when he came on our podcast, which was like episode 2 or 3, this was a while back, he told us a story about a road trip where you, him, and Dan Myers went to go see a movie, and you fell asleep in the theater. And we need to hear your side of the story because Kevin did throw you under the bus, and we just want to confirm if this story is true.
Well, I'd seen the movie before. But it was midway, and those guys were watching it, and I was talking to them from above. I don't know why they weren't sitting with me, but they like to get
those jerks
right up close in front of the thing. And it's the seats get comfortable, and sometimes you need a little snooze midway through. But I am nowhere near a Kevin Gorg movie buff. He goes and sees movies that you can only where you have to.
Oh, I know.
Subtitles
and subtitles, and there is no chance for this. The only thing wrong with Kevin Gorg is he is no judge of a good movie or a bad movie.
Are you saying you don't like A Star Is Born? Are you telling Kevin that you don't
see it 27 times? It's the best movie ever. I kept bugging him by saying The Star Is Born with Chris Christopherson and Barbara Streisand is much better, and he didn't like that. So, but we used to play. I'll still phone him up and say, Kevin, what's a good movie to go see? Then I'll go see it, and I'll say that movie was Horseflag. And what are you talking about? But it was a great it's a great opening of whether it's a movie on in a theater or TV or whatever. Because like this summer with nothing going on, I think I've seen the series Ozark 20 times.
Do you like it? I love that. I love that show.
I loved it so much. And we're watching it again every night. Like right last night was season 3, episode 4, and I just think. And now I just read yesterday that
the next one's the last
more season.
Yeah,
it's going to be an extended season. Excuse me, but I can't wait for it to come on because you can't help but love the situations in that show.
Right. And I love
just say
Jason
for
Bateman.
someone from Missouri, we're not all trash. I'm just saying.
I look to go to the Ozarks for a vacation.
No.
That looks like a great lake. And there's only one cop. How bad can it be?
It's a pretty lake. It really is nice, but man, you're going to catch something. It's going to be some sort of disease you're going to get. I promise.
That sounds about right. I love it. And for those who don't know, we brought up the movie stuff because before morning skates or at practices, you would often find Bruce and Kevin chatting about movies or something like that right before we were about to do the media scrum. And it was one of those things, again, I think we've talked about on this podcast, how great kind of the hockey community is, but that extends into the hockey media community. Like it made it fun to go to work and just to BS and, and then you can put on your serious face and go write your story and ask Bruce the questions that he probably doesn't want to answer, but he'll still do it.
Well, you gotta be human, right?
Right.
Like the ones that I remember, like, I don't want to say their names, that would walk in with the stoic face and think that they're better than everybody else and have the suit and tie on in the morning and you just want to get out of here.
Meanwhile, we're wearing like sweats and sweaters. We're like, hey, it's morning skate, guys. Like, I can't take yourselves too seriously. Speaking of not taking ourselves too seriously, we're going to do, before we let you go, quiz time, which I have a feeling that you're going to be really excellent at guessing all of these.
Yeah.
Like, it's about your career, playing and coaching. I'm hoping these are all accurate. If they're not, I think you'll be able to tell me as well, which I'm very excited about. We played this with Bruno. We've played this with Richard Park and Wes Walls. They did okay, not great about their careers. They couldn't remember as much, but I think you got this. So are you ready to rumble?
I'm ready to rumble. Hope I don't.
So So you remain the 16th leading all-time goal scorer in the AHL. People should be aware of. He phenomenal AHL player. How many goals did you have in your AHL career?
Oh, I had 799 points. Okay.
Yeah.
That would have been,
which is 12th in the AHL record book, by the way.
But see, I was in so many leagues. I don't know, but I think it was like something like 339 or something like that.
Not bad. 316. So not bad. Not bad. But you're right on the 799.
You nailed the points. Yeah.
Yeah. Does it irk you that you didn't get that one extra second assist or anything?
Pisses me off. I was a goal and assist somewhere. If I had known, I didn't know I only had 799, and I didn't realize the next year I was going to go play in the IHL. I figured I'd just come back to the AHL and just continue where I was going.
It's like a hanging chat. Like, I just need that extra point. Please give it to me.
If I was 47 years old and I was hanging on, and I would have begged, borrowed, and stealed for 800, but
it's unique anyway. Yeah.
Next question. How many different minor league teams did you score 100 or more points with?
Well, your questions are difficult. How many teams individually did I score 100 points with? Or
how many total? So there were, I'll tell you this, it's under 10.
No, it was 5 teams I scored 100 points plus more.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Ding, ding, ding. Yeah.
Phoenix, Fort Wayne, Springfield, St. Catharines twice, I think. Where else did I play? I played a lot of places. But those, I think, were the 5 times. But you're saying there was,
nope, that was right. You're right with that. That's what we were trying to aim for.
Yeah.
Let's move on to coaching. Your first year in Washington, 2007, 2008, when you were named the interim in November. How many points did the team finish the regular season with that year?
94.
Correct. And how many points did they finish with then in 09 and 10?
121.
Dang.
Boom.
See, I'm not surprised by this at all. We should have thought. See, they're not that hard.
You know what's funny about that is when Washington had their huge run 2 years ago, and they were talking about how great they were, and they ended up with 120 points. I was watching so closely that they didn't keep the 121.
That's awesome. I love that so much. I mean, what was that like? Was that bittersweet to see? I mean, all those guys, like I said, you're going to play golf with Backstrom. I mean, good for some of those players, but also
what the greatest thing about the Washington team is, first of all, they were all so young because they had all rebuilt. And when I came in, I had coached 7 of them the year before, and we won the Calder Cup. Mm-hmm. So I remember walking up the steps, the whole story. It's a long story, but walking up the steps, and Brooke Lake says, "What are you doing here?" And I had 2 bags of luggage over my shoulders, and I don't know. They just told me to come to practice, and so I mean, I didn't know how to answer it because I'd never been in the NHL before. But they were good players that totally responded day one from me. We were in last place when I took over the team, and we ended up winning the division on the last day of the season, and we lost in overtime in Game 7 in the first round of the playoffs.
Right.
Well, carrying on with your coaching career in the NHL, our next question is, how many times in your NHL coaching career did your team finish first in the division?
Well, every time except for when I got to Minnesota.
I wasn't going to say it that way, but yeah.
Let's see. It was, I think, in the first 4 years in Washington, and then when I went to Anaheim, it was we were in last place, so we didn't win that first year. But the next 4 years, we won again. So that's 8.
That's correct. Yeah,
nailed it, and that's true because it's insane. 4 straight with Washington, 4 straight with Anaheim. Little blip in Minnesota, which is not your fault.
And the crazy thing about that is when on March 1st, my first year, we were 11 points ahead of Chicago. Mm-hmm. That first year, and we went 4-10-2 in March, and Chicago went like 12-4-1.
Of course.
But I figured for sure we were an easy division lock, an easy conference lock, but then we just didn't go well in March.
Do you think that Minnesota is just a couple pieces away from truly being a contender? Because I think you look at the team that it is right now, and in my opinion, they're still missing things. I don't think that they're a legitimate contender just yet. And I don't know that there's enough in Iowa. I think there's some moving that needs to still happen. But do you think there are a couple pieces that could be added that could really elevate it, like a Kaprizov or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to comment on that, but I because there's so many players that I think are so underrated and are really good. Mm-hmm. And I love the defense on that team. I think they're as good as any defense in the league, and no one really understood that. And I think one of the real additions, well, Carson Soucy is going to be a really solid defenseman for years. But when we started to make our move here in Minnesota, it was because Matt Dumba got back to his game. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you recall, the first half of the year, he was still struggling, trying to do too much and everything. But once he became Matt Dumba again, the team took off. He was there. And I think that's a big component. So I think the defense is there. I really like their young guys of Eck, Cunnan, Greenway. And I thought there were 4 lines deep that they could match up against didn't have any superstars, but they could match up against any team on any given night. And I think Kaprizov coming in is going to be a real, when he does come in, if he does come in, that's been the story going on, right? Like, yeah. I mean, who knows, how that's all going to work out. What happens if he signs in Moscow a year? Then does he become a free agent at 25? I don't know the deal there, but I mean, that would be a real unfortunate thing, and that would be all because of this, because from every indication, Chuck went to visit him, Paul went to visit him, Bill went to visit him. He was happy with Minnesota. I mean, I thought it was going to be a slam dunk. Now, what happens if they lose out and they get Jason Lafreniere?
Yeah, there you go.
Then all of a sudden, Minnesota will get their very first, other than Gaborik maybe, then their very first potential superstar.
Yeah.
And I think that would be great for this community and area. I mean, it would have been great to win here, because I know how crazy this town would be if you won.
I mean, let's be honest, Chicago's going to sneak in and take that number 1 spot anyway,
as
since
they
tend to just smack Minnesota down. Anyway.
You know what? It would not surprise me one iota that a team like Chicago gets it, or God forbid if Pittsburgh loses to Montreal and they get it.
The fact that that's even a possibility is just so mind-boggling to me.
I mean, you know what? I love what the NHL has done, and it's made it exciting, but I don't understand it. I don't understand it. Like, for me, the teams that didn't make the playoffs should have been ranked 1 through 7, and they would have got the first 7 picks. Right. The teams that lose out in this round would get picks 8 through 16.
Yep.
But they did it differently. It's sure going to make for some
drama
when it comes through, and there could be a lot of ticked off GM if one of those teams get it. I'll tell you that much.
Heck yeah. The final question we have before we let you go, not quite a trivia question, but sticking on the NHL theme. Say we beat COVID, we come back, we play playoff hockey, we get to the Stanley Cup. Who are your 2020 Stanley Cup champions?
Oh, good question. I don't know.
1 of 24 teams, right?
24 teams. I have always thought that in the West that, everybody's going to pick St. Louis. I always thought Colorado had a really good chance at it. Yeah. I mean, they got that forward line. They've got depth. If they're healthy, they're going to be their speed on the back end is really good. So I was thinking that it could be Colorado, and it should be Boston, but I'm saying it's going to be Tampa because they've got something to prove. And
yeah, they do.
They've had the best team on paper in the NHL the last 5 years. They've made the finals once, the conference finals a couple times. It's time for them to push through.
Well, especially after getting swept in the first round last season, I think they're going to be a little pissed off that that happened. So yeah, I think those are good picks. Wild fans might not be happy to hear that you're thinking Colorado might take home the cup, but I think that's a good pick. You can't argue with that one, that's for sure.
The Wild will beat Vancouver. I think we'd be really showing what team we were hoping for if we said the Wild were going to make the finals this year.
Right. I mean, true. That would be a Cinderella run, right? Like, sure, let's see what happens. But again, Bruce, we'll let you get going. Thank you so much for joining us. We're happy that we finally got to see your face again for a little bit. Say hi to Alexis when you're out at the course.
Yeah, come visit me at the restaurant tomorrow.
And I will. And you guys have a great summer. Take care and be safe. And thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Bruce. We'll talk to you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. My cheeks hurt from smiling so much. That was so much fun. Bruce, I love you. You're my favorite. I miss him. Like we were so talking like after, like, it's just, he was such a great guy to be around. Like he made coming to the rink fun. And I get to chat with other NHL coaches as their teams swing through, and there's just never that same vibe. And again, those guys don't know me as well as seeing Bruce every single day, but you can't, not as many guys that are as unbuttoned as Bruce can be. Yeah. And he just loves hockey so much. So fingers crossed that he finds another job. Hopefully one in the Western Conference so we could see him more often too. Maybe that would suffice.
In passing,
Yeah, but and again, he's got the record to show that has success. Sorry, Wild fans, that he couldn't pull off that first in the division here.
Yeah, sorry, Wild fans. We're not included in those impressive records.
No, it was so funny because when I was looking that up, I'm like, this is just
it's
the bad marks on his career years in Minnesota. But
it is crazy, like because the trivia of like 4 in a row first place, 4 in a row first place, and then Minnesota. It's like, well.
7th and like it was, I mean, they made the playoffs the first 2 years, but it wasn't like,
and their like 12-game winning streak was pretty impressive.
I don't think it's Bruce. I don't think it's Bruce.
No, 100%. We don't have to dive into what we think that is, because I think everyone knows what it is.
Please.
It wasn't the coaching.
Yeah. But he's awesome. And I know that, like Jesse said earlier, we've been trying to get him on the podcast for a while here. We were going to have him on, and then shit hit the fan and we did other stuff, and so finally found the time to get him on, and just so nice to see his face. I told Jesse and Fred after the interview before we started the segment, I was like, it was as soon as his face popped up on the screen, I was just like, my heart was just warm again. I was like, I miss seeing that face behind the bench on TV or from the press box, and it's just he's such a fun person to talk with, and as you said, he loves hockey, he loves talking about hockey, and so perfect fit for a hockey podcast.
Exactly. And he loves Minnesota, and it's funny because that time that we originally had scheduled to have Bruce on was right in the midst of the riots, right when everything kind of really did pop off around Minnesota. And the journalist I don't cancel interviews. I will keep my interview as long as the subject is still available, because
especially someone like Bruce, who's like pretty sought after person, very busy man.
He was the one that texted me. He said, with everything going on in Minnesota, can we reschedule? And it just, that speaks to how much he's really integrated himself here into the state too. He felt that he lives in Woodbury, I believe, in that area. So he's up kind of away from Minneapolis, but he still feels what the state was going through at that time. And then of course we were like, yep, absolutely. Let's redo that. And that was the right call, because I kind of felt better too. I'm like, I don't know that this is, we couldn't have had fun with him. Right. And we couldn't have had the conversation that we did. So again, shout out to Bruce. You the best. We'll definitely have to get him back on again. Maybe once he gets hired to coach another team or something, take them to first place in the division.
It's gonna hurt. That's gonna be a real tough season for Wild fans.
He's gonna win the cup. He's gonna win the cup first year back.
In Colorado.
Oh God.
Or with Chicago. Maybe it'll be Chicago.
Bednar. Bye. It's Bruce now.
I like Jared. Anyway, we're gonna wrap things up here, because it's time for your favorite segment, where Alexis takes a deep dive into her childhood journal, pre-Twitter days, of her thoughts, reactions to wild woes, I'm going to call them, because most of the time they are not positive, wild situations. So without further ado, here's Dear Diary with Alexis.
Wild versus Blue Jackets, January 23rd, 2010. The Wild played great, and the best part was that we didn't have to come from behind. It would have been more exciting, but I'm not going to push my luck. Hockey Day Minnesota is the best idea anyone could come up with.
And that's Dear Diary with Alexis. And you went positive. So
I went positive, and this was like this was like what, 1 year into Hockey Day. Like I'm just like pumping Hockey Day's tires. I'm just like, yes, give me more of Hockey Day.
That first year though was amazing.
It was
something that like I remember going with, because I think I was 21 at the time. So we went to, I was like 4.5 bar. We went to like Wild Times in downtown St. Paul. Yeah. Pretended I was. But I was like with my parents and we made it that all day thing, right? Like we're like, they're going to show hockey 24/7. And it was like any hockey fan's dream. And then to see all the stories, and FSN does such a fantastic job with it. So yeah. It is. It's a cool thing. So, hey, you knew before everyone else.
I knew. I was ahead of the times. Hockey Day was a banging. It was real good. Yeah.
Well, again, thanks to everybody for tuning into this week's episode. Thanks to Bruce for joining us again. Can't give you enough love. Like I kind of want him on every week. Maybe if he doesn't find his coaching job or his analyst job,
we can hire him as a full-time host. Yeah.
Exactly. Thanks to Fred for pinning this all together. Thanks to Alexis for sharing your diary thoughts. And thanks to SodaStick for being our presenting sponsor. Again, don't forget to check out their merchandise, our Teespring store merchandise. Don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and rate this podcast so we can keep it going for you guys. Keep it, more raps coming. I would love to end on a rap. I kind of wanted to try to freestyle, but I'm not going to.
Oh my God.
Because
I haven't had my coffee yet, Jesse. One rap is enough for me.
No, thanks again to everybody. We'll be back next week. Have a good one. Near.